Good morning, students. My name is Madam Victorine. Welcome you to this lesson whereby we'll be learning how to identify, plot in an extract and in the blossom of the savannah. Let's begin by reading the extract. So it goes, don't be funneled me with your weird kind of reasoning. Say, are you getting impatient? Do you prefer the Nakuru bus stage to this serene environment? No, not at all, Resian said seriously. I'd rather live in the most noisy place on earth than live anywhere near a vagabond who would accost me in the most quiet and serene atmosphere with the intention of mutilating my sexuality. Of course, I also don't care whether I'm counted among the entire Nemegalana, an embarrassed Tayo said as she began to fold clothes, not looking at her sister. What I know is that my body belongs to me, I belong to myself. She picked a pillow, tossed it onto the bed, plumped it up and looked around, said fiercely, only when I'm dead would anybody mutilate my body. Don't you think they can force us to undergo the ritual? Resian asked fearfully. What do you think will happen to us if Papai is forced by his clansmen to embrace the archaic culture that will require us to get the cut? Resian, I hope nothing of that sort happens, for if it does, she shrugged her shoulders and pulled an expressive face. I don't know what will happen to us. So if you look at this excerpt, when it comes to paper 2, we term this as a scene text. In paper 2, we have both seen and unseen. So this one is called seen because all students are familiar with the blossoms of the savannah, because it's borrowed from the compulsory set text, which all schools have. And then the reason why we teach learners about the blossom of savannah is because learners are expected to acquire some skills, such as the ability to read and comprehend, the ability to place an extract or a passage in context, and then the ability to show that they understand the book they've read from beginning to end. It's therefore imperative and important that all learners or all students be familiar with the blossoms of savannah, read the book all the way from beginning to end. As you're going to analyze this text, I'll encourage you to pause and go find your copy of the book so that you'll be able to understand what we're talking about. So before you do that, you must also understand that when it comes to the set book, it's not about just reading for the sake of reading. You must read and understand what the author wants you to understand. You must know the sequence of events from the first chapter all the way to the 19th chapter. What follows what happens. You must begin from when Olekaelo leaves Nakuru after he's been retrenched and goes to Nasila. Tell us about the challenges they face there and the reception they receive from the villagers in Nasila environment and what they go through and the conflict between the characters here, because everything seems to revolve around the family of Olekaelo, who happens to be the protagonist. Also tell us the antagonists, the people who are against them and the people who they are facing. So once you know the sequence of events in this book, it becomes easy for you to answer questions in Excerpt. And that's what you want to learn how to do today. Then the next thing is, there's always a common question in your books, whereby in your exam where we had, what happens before an excerpt? In this case, this examiner is testing to see if you know the context of the excerpt. Where is the excerpt derived from? In this case, our excerpt comes from page 32. So when they ask you what is described just before the excerpt, they literally mean a paragraph before the excerpt. If I may read for you, if you have your book, you can read page 32, whereby the author writes, there's such a contrast between Nakuru and this place. Say it Tayo quietly. It is so quiet and tranquil here. That's the passage just before, that's the paragraph just before you do the excerpt. In this case, you know that Nasila has been contrasted with Nakuru, in that Nasila is quiet and tranquil as opposed to Nakuru. So if you want to know the context of the passage, sometimes the examiner or the passage itself will give you clues. So when they mention, when Tayo is asking Resian, do you prefer the Nakuru bus stage to this serene atmosphere? The Resian says, I would rather live in the most noisy place on earth than live anywhere near a vagabond. So from their conversation, even in the excerpt, you can already infer that Nasila seems to be more serene and more quiet as compared to the noisy Nakuru. So just by reading the extract itself, understanding, you can easily infer what is needed from you as a reader. Then some question they may ask you, what happens after the excerpt? So this is also easy in that after you've seen the last thing that Resian says after they speak, then you know the event that follows after. If you look at your book on page 32 where the extract ends, the last, the next paragraph, they speak about what they should do next about their predicament or what is going to face them in future. So Resian says, that's why it's imperative that you persuade Papai to allow us to go back to Nakuru and enroll at the university, said Resian vehemently, as she threw herself onto the bed, her arms behind her head. We must beat them to it. We must convince him to let us go before they prevail upon him to embrace outdated and archaic traditions. From what they discuss in the passage, you can already anticipate and know what is going to come after the passage. And there are a few things you need to have in mind when you want to place an excerpt in context. There's who, there's what, there's where, what, where, and why. For example, you must know who are the characters involved in this excerpt. What are the characters saying and doing in the excerpt? Where are they as they're speaking? For example, if it's Resian, are they in their home when they're speaking? Are they in Simiren's compound as they're speaking? Are they exiting Nakuru town as they're speaking? So once you know the who, the what, the where, and the why, it becomes easy for you to understand what happened before and what happens after. And that's why it's key for you to understand the plot of the story. Then next we have another question here whereby we are being asked that place the excerpt in its immediate context. So essentially they ask you just the same thing, but in this case they've merged two questions into one. In this case, they want you to give them the before and they want you to provide the after. So you must tell us before what is happening. They're discussing how Nakuru is quiet and tranquil. Then you write there after, indicate for us what happens after the excerpt. After the excerpt, here in this case, Resian is advising Tayo to talk to their father to allow them to go to Egerton University, and probably in that one they'll be able to escape being circumcised by the Dasila community because it's a tradition. So that's why it's very important for you to understand the plot of the story. So another way in which we want to know, or the examiner want to know if you've understood the book from cover to cover, they'll ask you some context questions or things to see if you know what you're talking about. And sometimes these questions will take you now out of the excerpt, whereby you have to use your knowledge of the entire text for you to understand. For example, the first one we have, why does Tayo count herself as Ntoye Nemengalana? So in this case, they want to know if you know the meaning of that word. So that word is from the Ma community, which means it's a derogatory term for the uncircumcised. So we want to confirm, are you aware of this term and do you know what it means? So that's why I said you must know the who, the what, the where, and the why. So what are these words? Why did Tayo say those words? So in this case, the answer is, Tayo is referring to the fact that she is uncircumcised. And that's why she's putting herself in the group of the other ladies who are uncircumcised, who are referred to by the Nasila people as the Ntoye Nemengalana. And that's why it's very important to understand the context of the story. Some of these things is important for you to just infer from what you just read. Then finally we have the last question whereby it says, only when I'm dead would anybody mutilate my body. By using your knowledge of the entire text, does Tayo stand by the above statement? So they want to find out, in this case, Tayo says that she's an Ntoye Nemengalana and she does not plan on being circumcised. So you're being asked, did she or did she not become circumcised, or was she circumcised? So by this is another way of trying to see if you read the text and you understand properly what happens in the book. So if you look at your book, from the rest of the book, we all know that Tayo eventually get circumcised, whereby she was tricked by her mother. So in this case, you're being asked, does she stand by the statement? So here you must specify, do you agree or do you disagree? It's a yes or no question. That's the first part. Then the second part, now you're going to give us a justification why you say what you've said with evidence from the text. So in this case, you write there, no. And the answer is, this is not true. This is, she does not stand by the statement because eventually she gets circumcised, even though it was as a result of being tricked by the mother with the help in conjunction with the SO8 woman. Therefore, I encourage you as a young person or as a student, please take your time and read the story from beginning to end. Read it from cover to cover and know the sequence of events from beginning to the end. Know when they leave Nakuru, know when they encounter the Acosta, when they encounter the vagabonds. So what happened before that? When does she leave Nasinga? When does she arrive at Minik's farm? So all this will be able to help you to study the passage. So when you're reading, always read the first reading and understand, and then the second reading begin to analyze the text. Make some short notes on the side when you're reading the text, so that when it comes to answering, it becomes easy for you. We'll continue with the rest in the next lesson. Thank you so much for paying attention. I wish you all the best and have a good day.